Hey everyone, you're here with the Sotong sisters, Candace, Delia, and Jazz. Y'all know us from our Sotong Sessions podcast, but we're here with a new segment today where we're going to be reviewing the TV show This Is Us. Stay tuned. All right, ladies, so we are going to review one of my favorite shows this fall, this season, This Is Us. Now, we know that This Is Us has been on for a couple of seasons, and we've kind of talked about it here and there over the years. We're going to dive into this season specifically because there's been a lot going on, And I think with the pandemic and with Black Lives Matter that's kind of ramped up this year, a lot of shows are being very strategic and intentional about the storylines that they are writing. You know, that life imitates art, art imitates life. It's coming full circle, I think, this fall season of shows. And This Is Us is one of those shows that's like, they came out the gate swinging, episode 1.
Yep.
So I wanted to be able to talk about it. I thought we could do a cool little review segment on it and talk about This Is Us. So how are y'all feeling about this show this season?
Man, I like that we're talking about this show because I feel like This Is Us. Like, the way that it starts, when the season 1 started, it was like they were turning 37, and I was turning 37 the same year. So I was like, I identified with the memories and stuff. And I think this season, the way this season started, was like right where we kind of started, like with the issues that we were addressing, bigger issues this year, the mindsets that you have to wrestle with. Yeah. I feel like this season felt like an explanation of everything that we were going through, an articulation of it, if you couldn't articulate it yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's really good.
Yeah, I think it's definitely portraying our 2020 on screen, which is good. Like, it's good to see shows tackle some of the harder issues and do it in a way that does it justice, but still keeps it like entertainment. I don't know. I think that's a fine line, but I think that This Is Us has particularly done a good job compared to some of our other shows that we like to watch. But I'm here for the storylines. Like, I love the characters, some in particular, which I know we'll get into, but it's been good seeing their journey over the past 5 seasons. So I'm excited to get into it.
But that's a good question. So do you like that they have been kind of using life in their art? Or do you prefer when you watch TV to have more of like an escapism, mindset? You know what I mean? Like when you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm ready to sit down, watch TV and just kind of chill. Do you want to see the stuff that's being portrayed on screen that's connecting to the world around you? Do you like that? Or do you prefer like, nah, I don't want that. Just give me something, entertainment value?
I like it because a show like This Is Us, where the cast is, diverse, but it's mainly centered around a white family, for them to bring in these social justice issues, Black Lives Matter, all that, I think is really good. And because a lot of white people watch the show, right? So to have those conversations, I feel like it's giving us, the viewer, society, a starting point for tougher conversations that we have. So I feel like it's a tool. And I think that's what, we try to do with Sotong Sessions as well, like bring in content and give people a starting point so that they can have conversations in real life. So for me, I like to see it on screen. If I need to escape, I have other shows for that. But I can see how people would feel like, oh, I don't really want to watch this. I want something that's purely fiction.
Yeah, I think there are other shows that are not doing it as well as This Is Us is handling it. Like, I'm a huge fan of Grey's Anatomy, and I can't watch Grey's Anatomy this season because if I'm like, it's just too much, like every episode is like, COVID is bad. Be careful, wash your hands. Every episode, and I'm like, damn it, okay. Like, but where's the storyline? Whereas I feel like This Is Us, especially like as we talk about this season and the characters, I feel like Randall dealing with how to handle Black Lives Matter and the impact that it's having on him, but being surrounded by that white family and then starting to go back and realize he's never been able to fully articulate his struggle ever anyway. Mm-hmm. And we already talked about this in one of our episodes about how we all grew up with that duality And I feel like how his character represented the struggle of that duality, I didn't have the words for it. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't have a picture for it. So to see him doing that, and then his sentences is about what he needs. Like, no, I need to be with my family this time. I need to be with the Black people in my life. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to write that sentence down and use that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're handling, I don't know who write this thing. I've always loved how they put stories together and how they can run timelines, but that was real. And it's not like COVID is bad, wash your hands, Black people matter over and over again. It's like it had heart behind it, and a heart that was real and true and authentic.
Yeah.
You gotta love it.
Oh, that scene with him and Kate where they're at the cabin and he breaks it down. I mean, that is like one of my favorite scenes of the show any season, like all the seasons, because he hits the head on white fragility, and he's like, you know, I can make you feel better. That's been my pattern my whole life. I tiptoe around the white people, my white family, but where does that leave me? Like, there are things that I need. I have, you know, these things going on that I need to process. I need to be with my Black family. So the way that I don't know, that whole scene was just like gold for me. And it really articulated the struggle that we all experience living in a world as minorities, you know, where you're tiptoeing around issues and you don't want to hurt a white person's feelings. So you can't really say what you want to say. You know what I mean? So
why do you think it is? Because in Randall's case, I mean, it's his family. It's his family structure. You hurt a white person's family, your whole structure is shaky now, right? But in your own life, like, why is it difficult to want to hurt a white person's feelings? Do you feel like that some kind of structure would be shaken if you did that?
I think it's like I think one, it becomes ingrained in you from birth. Like, it's just something that you grow up knowing, right? You don't say these things. You don't react that way. You don't push that hard. I think it's just what we know of as being Black in America. Like, that's just kind of what it is. But then as you grow up and you have certain experiences, you realize that if you say too much or do too much, consequences come back at you. So you may not want to tell your white coworker that her touching your hair is not okay, because then she might call you angry, or you have too much opinion, or you might have too much, you know, sass or whatever. And now you're seen in a negative light, right? So you're combative, or you're, you know, too intense. Those words that they use for us when you're just trying to explain that what your behavior is not okay, but then it comes back on me, right? So then you just kind of learn, like, it's not even so much about not wanting to hurt their feelings, because after a while, like, you don't even really care about that. It's more of like, you don't want their hurt feelings to screw you up.
Exactly.
That's where I think it comes from.
Yeah, it's definitely the backlash, and it's gaslighting. Like, who wants their experience, like, questioned, or, oh, it wasn't really, downplayed. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I think pisses a lot of us off, especially in the workplace. You're trying to maintain a level of professionalism, but then these things happen, and it's like, how do you navigate it? You know what I mean? So it puts you in that really tough situation. And in the scene where, from the show, where Randall is about to tell Kate, he's about to, like, stick it to her, you know what I mean? You could see him kind of take a pause for a second, because he was like, and then he went in, you know what I mean? So it's that question, and it's that walking that fine line of, okay, am I going to go there? Because I got to get ready. And if so, how am I going to execute it? You know, like, there's a lot of thought and premeditation that goes into that as a person of color when you're tackling these issues with white people.
Right.
Yeah. And I could still even feel like he was holding back even then, you know, like, it's his sister. He loves her. It's his family. And then when, like, his brother came out, it was a completely different conversation. You could tell that him and his brother are not there yet. They could not have that conversation to talk about it. Even later on.
And he knew.
Right. He knew that he couldn't have it. And then later on, I think Kate mentioned something to Kevin at one point about, like, Randall. And Kevin is like, well, Randall was loved by our parents. Like, they loved him. They treated him the best. Shows that he still doesn't get it. Like, he still doesn't understand that him being the favorite child doesn't mean that he didn't have a whole host of struggles that he had to go through.
It doesn't mean that he didn't make it easy for that to happen.
Exactly.
Because being the favorite takes work on the person who's being favored. That don't come easy.
Right, that's not easy.
Yeah.
I love the scene with the teenagers, the teenage versions of Randall and Kevin, where Kevin was struggling with football and the plays. And so then he goes to Randall, he's like, hey, teach me your rainbow system or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're working and they're studying their like index cards. And then Kevin asks him, he goes, do you do this for every test? Like you do this for everything? That's a lot of work. Like, why do you do this? Right. And Randall's like, I have to. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I go to this fancy school and you think that I'm so great, but if I don't do these things, I have to be 10 times better. I have to work 10 times as hard. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that his family, we see that his family didn't really understand what that meant. Mm-hmm. And then we see it played out now with Randall as an adult and him in his position, you know, in the community, like what he does, which is why this last episode where he was stripteasing in the office made no sense to me, because he would. No,
we needed it. We needed it. We needed the comic relief. And if you got comic relief, then we're gonna need Sterling K with his body, that smooth chocolate in the roll. What? I needed that.
Like, this is so uncharacteristic of him. He would have turned the camera off. He would have put the iPad down or something.
That was somebody else's job.
That is so funny. But while we're on the topic of Randall, can we give some snaps for his journey with mental health and finding a therapist throughout this season? Because, you know, seeing him start off at a point of like accepting that he needed to go to therapy, like that already was a huge thing. And his character, you know, struggles with anxiety so bad. And like, I could relate to that. So the fact that he finally got to the place where he was like, okay, I need to see somebody. And he starts going and he does the work there. But then he gets to the point where he's like, all right, I need a therapist. And he has to make that choice. He, like, you could literally see him at that crossroads, like, okay, I'm not getting quite what I need. I need to articulate that, like that's a step. I need to let this person know, hey, the work that we've done together is great, but I'm gonna need a little bit more. Right. So you see him go through that journey of trying to find a Black therapist and kind of like having a couple sessions with different people to see what would be a good fit. I loved seeing that on screen, a Black man in therapy and then transitioning to a Black therapist. Like it was just beautiful to watch. And I think that pieces like that, seeing it on screen, is inspiring for other Black people, Black men who are going through the same journey. It's finally starting to normalize that in our community.
Yeah.
I think mental health is so well talked about. And I think that once you start talking about like mental health and seeking counseling and therapy, then once you're in that place of normalization, what needs to get normalized next is the right to choose and to change therapists, because that becomes the next stigma, right? It's like, now I'm with this person who helped me in this part of my life, but I'm in a different stage of my life now, and I don't know how to get out of this relationship, you know, without hurting somebody's feelings. And that scene in particular, I really enjoyed too, because I was in the same place of changing my therapist, realizing like, okay, this segment of my journey has come full circle. The next segment, I'm gonna need, you know, something a little bit different. And how do you approach that? Is it okay to approach that? I think, again, TV has given us a really great example to say, yeah, it's okay. And you can test these things out. You don't have to stay with a therapist that you were assigned or that isn't giving you what you need in a new season.
Yeah. I think one thing that This Is Us does really well is telling the smaller stories within the bigger picture. They do a really good job, even with Kate and Toby's adoption story right now. I know there are thousands of people who can identify with their adoption story and can identify the emotional ups and downs. I thought that one scene that they did really well was between Toby and Kate when, you know, she was trying to get a little bit more emotion from him, like, meet me where I'm at. And he was like, that's not where I need to be. Like, like the way I'm handling this is different. And I can't necessarily come all the way over to your side. And I don't want you to come all the way over to my side. Like, we have to have I need to be able to have my emotional journey in this, but then also partner with you on your emotional journey. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was beautiful because that's also one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is infertility, not being able to have a kid, the emotional and the financial toll it takes on couples. That's really hard. And so I think that they're doing a really good job with that storyline. Then you got the moms with the Alzheimer's. That's hard. Like that is a whole different level of hard for families and for the people going through it to literally feel like you're losing who you are and that fear that comes with that. So I think that This Is Us does a fantastic job of kind of these smaller pockets of stories within the overarching story and then weaving them all together.
Can we talk about what we're not a fan of, though, on this?
Yes.
Because I had enough of Kate. Like, her whine, her shrill of a whine. She's always like, girl, bye. Like, I had enough of her. Like, because you mentioned the scenes where she's, like, going through they're going through trying to get a kid in the old adoption. And she's like, I need you to be where I am. I'm like, why? Like.
No, but I feel that though. I think I feel that because I feel like you want your partner. So there are some times like in marriage where I want him to like be on my side. You know what I mean? Like be that either high or low with me. Not all the time, but I think for something like that, I could understand her. Yeah.
Okay. maybe if it were like, I don't know. I just don't like Kate.
I hear you. A lot of people have the same feeling that you do. And there are times where I'm like, let me fast forward to the Randall scenes. Like I'm not, look, yes. There are definitely times I'm like, when's the next time I'm gonna see, the Black family?
That part.
But another part that I'm not here for is Kevin's acting arch.
Oh, this is
becoming like a good actor now. Look, Justin Hartley, we understand that you are putting in work and we respect you for that. But we also know that you are the weakest link. I mean, I'm just going to say it. Okay?
I like him.
Know you're the weakest link. We understand. We appreciate your efforts. But it just feels like they're pushing it too much.
Yeah.
With him, like the actor trying to get better as well as the character trying to get better. Mm-hmm. Like it's just too much for me.
Jazz, what you think about Kev?
Man, take it or leave it. Like I'm here. I'm rooting for everybody Black, like Issa Rae. So I think this season in particular, I'm here for Randall and Beth and their family. I've been a big fan of Randall and Beth from the beginning. I love their story. I love their dynamic. I love their family, everything about it. And the fact that like they are where they are right now. I don't know. I love their story. Kevin, man, I like the flashbacks. And Kate, man, but I am looking forward to seeing what happens with the adoption story because I know it's just like a ticking time bomb. Something's about to pop off. So yeah, I want to see where that goes.
I personally identify with Kevin. Like I'm here for Kevin. Randall, I'm like, I know that guy. I know that story. Beth, we know her. We are her most of the time. But like I understand Kevin. I love that everything he does falls flat. But how much work it takes for him to do that. Because you see how much energy and effort he's putting into this thing that tends to fall flat. And I think what made me a Kevin fan is, remember, I don't know which season it is, where Randall had this big anxiety thing and he was breaking down, right? And Kevin was just about to go on stage to do his play that he had worked so hard to get his like opening, whatever. And he talks to Randall and he's like, oh, what would my dad do? And he runs and he saves his brother. Ever since then, I'm like, Team Kev, you and me, bro. You and me. His face was flat and emotionless the whole time. Okay, but the heart was there. Like the effort, I respect it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Meh.
That's funny. Well, I think it'll be really interesting once This Is Us comes back for the new half of the season in the new year, 2021, to see how these characters continue to go through these storylines, what else they kind of throw in the mix, and to continue to see like that journey. There are a lot of pieces that I'm really interested to see how they play out for the rest of the season.
How they incorporate Randall's mom, remember?
Yes.
Yes.
The whole piece. So we will definitely make sure that we come back on here and discuss a little bit more about This Is Us as the season continues. Y'all stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Bye, y'all.